Heat injury happens when the body gains more heat than it can get rid of. The extra heat might come from exercise or from a rise in temperature in your surroundings. It can cause you serious long-term health problems and may result in you being medically discharged. You don't have to be in a hot climate to suffer heat injury, although hot weather increases the risk. You can get heat injury anywhere, when you're very active, or when you wear protective clothing such as helmets and CBRN IPE, and your body temperature goes too high. It can happen when you least expect it. Everyone is at risk from heat injury, but certain factors make you more vulnerable. Being overweight or unfit, being dehydrated, smoking, or having recently drunk alcohol. Injury and certain medication can also make you more prone to heat illness. Illegal drugs like ecstasy too. You can help guard against heat injury by eating well and getting enough sleep. If you are vulnerable, be aware. It's everyone's responsibility to know how to prevent, identify, and treat heat injury. Heat and cold. Protect yourself, protect your mates. Don't be your own worst enemy. As well as feeling hot, someone suffering from heat injury might be thirsty, extremely tired, agitated, feeling sick or vomiting, staggering or losing coordination, muscle cramps, disturbed vision, confusion. It can even cause collapse or loss of consciousness. If you or someone else, especially your mate, shows these symptoms and you're also hot, don't just push on. Take immediate action. Make sure you drink plenty of water before you go out on operations or exercise. And always carry a full water bottle. Whatever temperature you're in, keep drinking. Avoid fizzy drinks and alcohol before and immediately after training. Urine should be light in color and plenty of it. If someone is suffering from heat injury, stop the activity and check if anyone else is at risk. You all have a responsibility to look out for each other. Lie the person down in the shade. Strip off equipment and outer layers of clothes. If conscious, raise their feet. Give them water. Do everything you can to cool them down. Fan them. Sponge or spray with cool water. If unconscious, place in 3/4 prone recovery position. Fan and sponge or spray with cool water. Evacuate immediately for medical attention. Heat and cold. Protect yourself, protect your mates. Don't be your own worst enemy. Don't be fooled into thinking heat injury is a problem only in hot climates. Heat injury can happen anywhere, at any time of the year, and in any weather. The risk of suffering heat injury depends on your work rate, weather conditions, and the clothes you wear. It is a significant injury, neither an illness nor a weakness. It can lead to serious discomfort and medical discharge.
Climatic injuries affect not only the person involved with the injury, but also operational effectiveness. They incur a significant loss in wasted man days and training opportunities. Most frustratingly of all, they can all be prevented.
Some people are more able to withstand heat than others. Being dehydrated or having recently drunk alcohol makes people more vulnerable to heat injury.
Okay lads, in summary then.
Commanders should discourage social events the night before any physical exercise. They should warn personnel that alcohol makes them more vulnerable to climatic injury.
If you're aware that an individual is overweight or unfit, that needs to be addressed at the earliest available opportunity. However, it is important, if somebody is not fit enough for the job, that you don't overpush them. If you have any particular concerns over an individual or a particular task, you can always seek advice from the medical officer. Other actions you should consider: possibly cancelling the activity or simply moving it to a cooler part of the day. If an individual under your command does suffer from heat injury, one of the things you should consider is there anyone else suffering from it?
1,500 hours, minus 5, right, 2 section, and then...
A commander's responsibility extends to carrying out a thorough risk assessment of any activity, and that involves a continuous reassessment whilst the activity is ongoing.
Personnel may conceal symptoms because of personal pride or fear of being removed from training. Rest periods are very important. Make sure people drink enough water and remove clothing and equipment if possible. Commanders must consider adequate rest periods in their risk assessment and balance the need for rest against the operational or training imperatives of this activity. Research suggests that a 15-minute rest period every hour of exercise can dramatically reduce the incidence of heat illness. Keep an eye on inexperienced personnel. Commanders have a key role in preventing heat injury. Careful risk assessment, good planning and leadership are key to preventing these injuries. Heat and cold. Protect yourself, protect your team. Don't be your own worst enemy. Getting cold and wet is a fact of life in the Royal Navy and the Royal Marines. But it's up to you to make sure your body doesn't get so cold it becomes an injury. Non-freezing cold injury usually affects hands and feet. They become numb and stay numb, which is not normal. A cold injury can prevent you working and can affect every part of your life. It can stop you being promoted or even cut short your service career. NFCI is an injury, not a weakness. You don't need to be in Arctic conditions to get NFCI. Getting wet and cold in the UK can be just as dangerous. Anyone can suffer from NFCI at any time of year in training or on operations. Some people and some groups are more vulnerable to cold injury than others. You have to look after them. It is everyone's responsibility to know how to prevent, identify and treat NFCI. Always speak up if you feel too cold or have numb or painful feet or hands. Heat and cold. Protect yourself, protect your mates. Don't be your own worst enemy. The first signs of NFCI are feeling pain and numbness. Your feet and sometimes your hands hurt and then go numb. Feeling pain and losing feeling in your hands and feet is not normal. You must act fast.
Right, Ben, look at me. Ben, what's up with you?
If your hands and or feet stay numb, tell someone. Don't hide it, or it will get worse.
Keep it soft and socks, soft on your feet. Like your feet are absolutely
Get medical attention immediately. You can protect yourself from cold injury by being well prepared. It's important to keep your spare kit dry. Dress in layers so you can adapt to changing weather. Don't tie your bootlaces too tight. If you have to stand still for a long time, wiggle your hands and feet, do step-ups or march on the spot, and put on an extra layer if you can. When you're out in the wet and cold, eat and drink as often as possible. A full stomach helps produce body heat. If you are on sentry duty and it's cold, make certain you're well protected. Dehydration and smoking can make NFCI worse. Take extra care of your feet. Dry them as soon as possible, use foot powder and change into dry socks. If someone is suffering from a cold injury, find some shelter or create a windshield. Replace wet clothing with dry. Rewarm the person's limbs slowly without using artificial heat. And consider evacuation to a warm, dry environment. Heat and cold. Protect yourself, protect your mates. Don't be your own worst enemy. Non-freezing cold injury, NFCI, is currently the most common climatic injury in land operations and exercises. It happens in the UK, not just in the Arctic. It's a significant injury, neither an illness nor a weakness. It can have serious consequences for the individual, the commander, and the unit.
These injuries are almost entirely preventable, and yet they still happen. They lead to a great loss of training time and indeed personnel. The main cause of it is leaving hands and feet wet and cold for protracted periods of time.
Some groups are more susceptible, Afro-Caribbean in particular, and individuals who have previously experienced NFCI. Commanders must take this into account when planning.
Whoever's coming in, right, so you need to dress accordingly. Make sure that you crack the wet and dry routine because you're going to be wet.
It's the commander's responsibility to take all risk factors into account. He should also consider what likely cover and shelter he can use, and also the weather conditions. The colder and wetter it is, the greater the risk. The risk assessment should be ongoing. Obviously, the weather can change, and you should experience exactly the same conditions as your men, and indeed should be wearing the same clothes as them.
Commanders should be conscious of changes in weather and reassess the risks accordingly. Be aware of the danger of cold injury, particularly with recruits, inexperienced personnel, and those in vulnerable categories. Some personnel conceal their symptoms because of pride or a fear of being removed from training.
You all right, Ben? Something. Oh, God.
You must be prepared to stop the activity if there's a danger of NFCI. Prevention is 20% kit and 80% leadership.
Ben's starting to go down, mate. Right, soon as move off, bit of cover, get some warm clothing on him, and a hot wet inside him. Lower, right. Okay, Ben, jump up in front of me, mate. Keep an eye on you.
Keep personnel moving at all times. Hot drinks and food help bodies to keep warm.
Right, lads, ready for foot inspection? Let's go. Any problems?
After a day out in the cold, inspect feet and make sure they change into dry kit. Make sure personnel who seem to have NFCI report sick. When it comes to cold injury, prevention is better than cure. And prevention is in your hands through good leadership. Heat and cold. Protect yourself, protect your team. Don't be your own worst enemy.